Kentucky Derby.
You're watching Past the Wire TV, the biggest races at the best tracks. From the Kentucky Derby to the Breeders' Cup. The best horse racing coverage is right here on Past the Wire TV.
Very good Sunday morning to you. Father's Day edition of Sunday Morning Coffee on Past the Wire TV. I'm Big Race Jim. Shout out Shorebet Coffee, Amwager, Pleasant Acres, helping us bring the content every single week. This has been fun. I know I kick off the show every week saying it's been X number of weeks or X number of months that we've been doing this, but the streak lives, and it's been a very entertaining ride through the Triple Crown with each and every one of you. Father's Day today, always kind of a special day. Now that I've got two kids of my own, I don't know, they're downstairs right now making me a card or something, and I was told I wasn't allowed in the kitchen, so figured I'd pop up here, do this show, and then go see what they have in store for me today. But kind of growing up, it was my dad that got me involved in horse racing and interested in horse racing, and my interest levels have kind of, at least previously, have kind of ebbed and flowed. But every Father's Day, we'd be at Monmouth Park, about 40 minutes from where I grew up in New Jersey, and yeah, every Father's Day we'd be at Monmouth. We even had we did a Father's Day, like, I don't know, we got a race named after my dad on Father's Day at Monmouth many, many, many years ago. Probably maybe I don't know, 12 plus years ago at this point. This horse called Rockin' Beige won, and my dad has the little winner's circle photo posted on his wall, all framed, and a couple of us are in there, which was which was pretty cool. But yeah, just kind of grew up going to the track with him as a kid, and then when I really started to sink my teeth into it, he was always a good sounding board, and kind of handicapping, this and that, helping me along. Back in 2010, I would say, 2010, 2011, when I really started to follow the races on a weekly, daily basis. So have my dad to thank for kind of bringing me along and bringing me through the sport from the handicapping end. And anytime I create a piece of content or write an article for Blood Horse or America's Best Racing, I'm usually having him give it a read and give me some feedback before I finalize it and turn it in. So shout out to my dad for bringing me through horse racing and getting me involved in the game. And I'm working on it with my kids, and I think that's where it starts, right? I think a lot of people's horse racing origin story starts from their dads or some family member that brought them to the track at a young age, and allowed them to be exposed to the game and all the intricacies of it, and all the fun aspects, and the maybe even some of the not so fun aspects of it. But if you're in a position to do that, or if that is your story as well, just encourage you to kind of keep leaning leaning into that that side of it, because otherwise nobody new gets into the sport, and it ends up kind of going by the wayside. Um, what's the big news of the week? I guess something we all kind of knew already was that um, the Belmont was going back up to Saratoga, third year in a row, and a little disappointed in that. Um, it would have been cool. I mean, that's obvious, right? They're gonna go where the money is the best, and that makes sense. Um, but it would have been nice to see Aqueduct get the Belmont in its swan song next year. Just give that track one more day in the sun to host the Belmont before it gets demolished and turned into an affordable housing complex, or whatever the state ends up deciding to do with it. That would have been cool. But back to Saratoga, they're cooking the golden goose, and I don't know. Perhaps this becomes the beginning of a much longer meet at Saratoga, right? I think they're already having the Fourth of July racing festival up there this year. I'd be pretty surprised if that does not become a regular thing, and they just roll that into the regular Saratoga meet. But we'll see. But 2026 Belmont up at Saratoga, and we all kind of knew that was going to be the case. The other thing is the potential of closing down fairgrounds in New Orleans, and it sounded like the historical horse racing machines that Churchill Downs had been relying on to kind of keep racing afloat, and that's not really the right way to characterize it, because CDI makes money hand over fist. But that that track subsidy for fairgrounds coming from HHR is no longer there, right? The state ruled that those machines were unconstitutional because it didn't go through the proper, um, you know, county by county, or parish by parish, as they're called down in Louisiana, did not go through the proper parish by parish approval process. So none of those machines can be on, and uh, CDI is kind of crying poverty, saying that they need that money, otherwise it's just untenable to operate fairgrounds. And now the state's stepping in and trying to say that they're not going to allow racing operations to end at fairgrounds. So we'll see what happens. It didn't seem like CDI was like interested in selling the property just yet. I know the owners of the Saints and Pelicans, big horse racing supporters, the Benson family, they're not interested in taking it over. So I feel like there's some conversations going on in the background, but you know, we'll see. I think a lot still needs to get hashed out, but time's kind of the essence here in the next couple of months, right? Don't they usually start running there on Thanksgiving, I think. So, we're in June, so only 5 months, 4.5, 5 months from now, they've got to get their acts together and figure out what's going on. Um, if I was some neighboring states like Texas, or Arkansas, Oaklawn, like I'd be finding a way to bring those horses in. Texas is a little bit of an interesting thing because they're not following the HISA rules, and that signal isn't going out beyond state lines and whatever else. So a little bit of a unique scenario here in Texas where I'm at, but that would be a golden opportunity to bring some high quality racing to Texas if they could figure that out, or Oaklawn. I know they have that turf there that they don't use. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they could find a way to do that, or a bunch of those horses would probably. I don't know where you go. Maybe Gulfstream, Tampa is where they end up, but um, we'll see what happens there. Still plenty more conversations, I'm sure, that need to be had. The racing wasn't all that great yesterday. I watched a couple of races at Aqueduct, and um, got busy doing other stuff. Watched most of the stakes at Monmouth, and of course the Pegasus, which leads into the Haskell. I thought Bracket Buster was pretty darn impressive in there for Victoria Oliver. Just looking at the connections here on my phone. Yeah, I thought he dug in and kind of drew off from everybody else, and kind of crushed the field by like 10 something lengths. A little bit of a weirdly run race, like this Garamond for Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt was like 3-5 or something ridiculous, and that horse finished dead last. I mean, maybe he was up there and then just kind of like faded badly. And perhaps, like, here's a good question. You guys can chime in the comments. So the track was super muddy, sloppy yesterday at Monmouth. Ton of rain on the East Coast. What else is new? Um, so if you see a horse that's like contending for the lead like that, and seemingly moving well until there's maybe a quarter of a mile to go or so, an eighth of a mile to go, and then they start to wilt, um, specifically in the mud. Do you see that as an issue with the mud and them not liking an off track, or do you see that as a distance limitation, or maybe a combo of both? I'd be curious to hear what people would think. Um, I would lean more towards a distance limitation, um, rather than the slop, but I'd be curious to hear what everybody else thinks. You had Tusken Sky too yesterday in that Salvatore Mile. Just kind of missed the break and kind of had to get hustled up into the mix with the field. But you could even see, like, around the far turn, like the horse was just not interested. And I think that was some sort of sloppy track scenario. Let me see if I can pull his stuff up here. Um, yeah, because there was another race last year. He showed up in the Wood Memorial, this Tuscan Sky, and then he showed up in the Haskell, and also did not run very well in the Haskell. But he was at the yeah, did not run well in the Haskell. But I guess he won the Pegasus last year. So I don't know that is necessarily a Monmouth Park thing. I'm looking this up because I do recall there being some moisture on the track on Wood Day last year, because I was there. So I just wanted to see what it was listed at. Said it was fast. All right. Never mind. The horse just ran like crap yesterday. And that was just a little bit perplexing. Um, so overall, I thought the racing yesterday was kind of meh. But Bracket Buster looked good. I don't. We'll see who shows up in the Haskell, but I think off a nice big win like that, I'd give him a little bit of a longer look. I know that they were high on this horse earlier on in the year, so maybe he's just perhaps rounding rounding into form. One last thing I wanted to touch on is we all kind of complain about the CRWs and all the money that they're pumping into the pools and just how efficient their betting is and the rebates, and we all don't like it. There are some instances where you can find some vulnerabilities in their models. And I think a great example of this was um, on the Friday of Belmont weekend in the Acorn with Good Cheer. You knew that horse undefeated was going to be the CRW play. But if you dug a little bit closer, you could see a lot of vulnerabilities with that pick with Good Cheer. And actually, a couple big glaring, sort of red flags perhaps would be just a lot of her speed figures were coming back pretty slow, even though she was winning, but her speed figures were coming back pretty slow. And we can be visual handicappers, right? Trust your eyes, as John always says. But I think too we have to rely on figures, and we have to, some you can take with a grain of salt. Like there's some instances where your eyes will tell you something different. Um, but usually, in my opinion, it's when a figure comes back higher and you're like, they didn't look all that impressive. Let me just keep that in the back of my mind. I've spoken on here a few times. The last two um, Wood Memorial Days at Aqueduct, those figures on Brisnet at least have seemed to seemingly come back inflated. And I factor that into my Kentucky Derby weekend prepping and handicapping, that it tends to be Wood Memorial Day at Aqueduct, that those figures tend to come back a bit inflated. So I take that into account. But you don't usually see horses return a lower figure and you're like, oh, that should have been a lot higher. Right. So I think we have to trust those low figures. So you knew Good Cheer was going to be the CRW play, but her figures on Brisnet were pretty low. Like they were right in line with a lot of other horses in that field. She was not that, 1 to 9 or whatever she went off at on that Friday of Belmont weekend. Um, and that was the CRWs just hammering her in the pools. And I thought that was a vulnerable spot for the CRWs. And we have to be paying attention to those opportunities because they're out there. Like there was that Garamond yesterday I mentioned. I didn't look at those PPs, but that was another, 3 to 5 shot that finished in dead last. And that opportunity, if you can find that opportunity, then you're in a position where you can make some money because Bracket Buster paid almost $10 in that Pegasus. So yes, going up against these, high-powered algorithms and whatnot is frustrating. And when you feel like you've got a good horse, right, at decent odds, and in that final tick of the tote, your odds get cut in half, like it's annoying. But on the flip side, I do believe that there is at least one opportunity per card where you can kind of exploit the CRWs and thinking like a CRW and where that money is going to go to and trying to find a play against. And I think that good cheer in the Acorn was a perfect example of a vulnerable, super vulnerable, low price favorite, given the way her figures were coming back with a horse like La Cara that was going to be out on the front end and get bold and just not stop running. I forget, was it? Yeah, it was the Oaks where perhaps La Cara went out just a little bit too fast and tired late. So coming back on a month's rest and being able to control the speed a little bit set her up for victory. So we just have to be thinking about these opportunities and where they might lie on a day of racing, so that we can get past these CRWs and make a successful win bet. We just have to be patient. We have to pick our spots and really dig in and try and identify where these opportunities lie. But that's all I got. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna go hang out with my kids for the day. I think we're gonna go do some fishing, and just hopefully enjoy a little Texas sunshine. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you again. Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV, on Big Race Gym, our good friends at Shore Bet Coffee, Amwager, and Pleasant Acres. Have a great week.
Here comes journalism, here comes sovereignty, and they square off, head into the final front. Sovereignty wins the Derby!
You're watching Past the Wire TV. Hit that like button and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.